from the YABC.com, right? YABC.com review group. She's the head of it. And we've had a little chat before, but we're going to talk a little bit more. Connie, how did you get into reviewing?
Well, from a personal view, I was a very avid reader from being a school teacher and a librarian and an interventionist. I needed to have a lot of different books and diversity of what I read in different age groups so that I can recommend them and use them with children. And during COVID, I took a break from teaching to be an at-home parent with my children as they were doing school online. And I was talking to the then owner of YABookCentral.com, and her writing career was taking more of her time, and she was looking to do something else. And I said, I would really actually like to maybe take it over for you and start being a reviewer since I already was verbally doing a bunch of reviews and book recommendations to friends and families and students. So putting it to paper and online was just kind of a natural progression for me.
Okay. Now, which I know that you chose YA, and is that because you have small children, younger children, or is it just a genre that you enjoy?
YA is probably the genre I enjoy the most for my own self. And actually, if you look really carefully at our website, we say YA and kids. And since I took it over, there was middle grade and children's lit on the website before, but I had two younger children in the children's and middle grade, so I've expanded that a ton. And um, it the website was already set up for YA and middle grade and kids, and so it just was there was no need to change it since that's what I was already reading.
Okay. Now, when we talked before, you mentioned at one time there's like two different categories of YA, or did I misunderstand that?
YA is for supposed to be for children ages 12 and up. I've seen over the last few years, it's becoming a lot more mature as booksellers realize that a lot of YA audiences are actually adult women in their 30s and 40s. And as they've tried to cater to us adults reading that genre, things have gotten really more mature. So then they kind of tried to do this new adult genre where they have maybe spicier, more mature themes. But the technically YA is still 12 and above, but there's been a shift in just making everything kind of more mature. I've seen middle grade that's supposed to be 8 to 12, but a lot of books are coming out saying they're 10 and above and maybe have a crush or a love interest, but it doesn't really go beyond liking them or holding their hand. So maybe things that you would have seen in YA in the early 2000s or 2010s is now more middle grade in that 10-year-old age group.
That's kind of scary. It is.
Yeah, like I have an
As a
11-year-old and she isn't interested in a full romance. She would be horrified if she read a book with kissing in it. But she is interested if there's a guy they like, or, maybe they exchanged holding hands. And so that tween audience is, I don't know, when I recommend books for her, I've been doing books that I read 20 years ago because I know that it's meant for a younger age group than what is currently coming out.
Yeah, I know what I read when I was 12 and 13. I got into some that were pretty spicy
Mhm.
back then. Now it's not spicy, but back then, um, because I'm a great grandma.
Yeah.
And that kind of dates me as to what I was reading. I mean, my mom wasn't even reading that spicy. She
Hmm.
was reading things like, oh, Perry Mason and 77 Sunset Strip, those kind of books. Because I remember when we were stationed in California, one of the things she wanted to do was go to Palm Springs
Yeah.
because
The
all of her
YA
books were
genre
there.
is actually a fairly recent development
It
because
is.
a lot of the books that we read in high school that were the classics, those weren't really for kids. Those were adult books. And so when you're talking about reading books about Perry Mason, those were for adults. So this whole idea of writing things meant for teenagers and the teenage experience of high school or early college or relationships, all of that I feel like is only in the last like maybe 90s and above. And so if you are a writer trying to get into YA, it's very different from the books you might have read when you were that age. And so I would definitely say you need to be reading very voraciously in what is coming out currently so that you know the lingo, what they're interested in, because my 11-year-old's real quick to tell me that bruh, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, bruh, you know. So, in order to use the language naturally in the books you're writing for YA, it is key that you know how kids today talk. One indie author that I saw kind of get around that is they wanted to write kind of a nostalgic piece of how they remembered being teens. So they actually set it as a historical fiction, and which makes my heart cry just a little bit that historical fiction is now 1980s and 1990s. But that allowed that writer to tap into the things they cared about or the experiences they had and it not come off as dated because it's historical fiction. So it's fine that it had those elements. Um, so I would definitely recommend if for anybody who's wanting to get into YA that is not that is new to the genre, is it changes rapidly, and you need to be on top of what is being currently read.
Yeah, that's why it scares me to go, even think about going into it, because I'm not around children.
Yeah.
So it's, I know that some of the authors I work with that write for YA, and they also write adults fantasies and or mysteries, and they have a real challenge downgrading it. One
Mm-hmm.
of them, fortunately, was a teacher for years, and so she has a, and she's also into horses. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a perfect genre for that, for those kids that love horses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is a challenging genre to write for, and to keep it safe
Mm-hmm.
for the kids. Kids are losing their innocence too soon.
Yeah, I definitely think if you are going into YA or middle grade or children's lit, it is so important to be around children of that age group because I was a teacher from 2006 to 2013 and then COVID hit and I was teaching not that many years ago with worksheets, limited computer space, and now everything's Chromebooks and Toddle and Google Classroom, and that's their language. That's what they know. And I, even as a parent, don't even know what they're talking about. I just tell my kids, please go do what you're supposed to do and hope that they get it figured out. So, and I wasn't out of the classroom for that long. So it's just so important that whatever age group you're choosing to write for, that what they're doing and knowing your audience. If you're the younger you're writing for, then those developmental stages comes into play. One of the biggest kind of faux pas I see for an indie author when they are sending their book to me they might have the age range listed as birth to 18 or 7 to 18. And I'm sitting here thinking, there's just not, it's not possible for that actually to be the age group. And I immediately doubt you as the authority of what you've written when your age range doesn't make sense for the cognitive development of children. And I have had authors tell me, well, I don't want to condescend to the younger child and keep this concept from them that this is, but I'm sorry, a baby's not ready to think about the Big Bang. Like, so to write a book where you're saying it's appropriate for a baby as well as a second grader, you're doing your book a disservice, and you kind of are immediately telling on yourself when you list your book like that. So I would say, my advice when a person sends me a book as just from a reader, I am not an author, but as a avid reader of some, read 300 to 400 books a year, your cover needs to be really appealing before somebody even will pick it up and give it a chance. Your title needs to, you know, the cliche is don't judge a book by its cover, but if you're going to invest your time and your money, you absolutely are going to judge a book by its cover and its title
Oh,
before
yeah.
anybody ever looks at your synopsis. The other part of knowing your audience is the synopsis and the summary people write. I do a lot of verifying listings through Amazon to make sure authors have sent me everything. And there's a big difference sometimes between what a self-published author writes in their synopsis, because sometimes they give it all away, or at
Hmm.
least maybe they want a plot twist, but you can't tell it from their synopsis, and all of a sudden it feels like I know that what everything's going to be in that book forever, pick it up. And I don't want to read it because I know what it's going to have.
Hmm.
Where a traditionally published book may have a really catchy intro or a question that leaves me curious and wanting to figure out more. Um, so I guess for YA authors, from me not being a writer myself, but from being a very avid reader, you have a tough job to make people want to pick up your book when everything is flooded, the whole market is saturated with choices. And if
Hmm.
you're going to ask somebody to pay $30 for your book these days, you really have to know your
Oh,
audience.
yeah. Yeah, because I know Ingram Sparks has come out and said now that they are not going to publish any book under $16.99.
Yeah.
As far as
Yeah.
a
And that makes people
paperback,
even more
this,
hesitant.
yeah, and it doesn't matter the size. It's going to be 16.99. And to me, but I do know that children's books are more expensive because of the size and the patterns and things like that. What I want to know is how can somebody get into reviewing and become a part of a team of like yours?
Yeah. Personally, I was very lucky where it was handed to me. I joined YABC that's been in existence since 1998. It already had 15 plus staff members. Some of them have been with YABC since 2009. So we're a very stable lot. I do think now, since, having been with the group for 5 years, the people I bring on to the website are people who already have established blogs where they are active members of writing reviews and I can see what their samples are. Um, I would encourage them to, if they don't have a blog, to be active on Goodreads or on our site or somewhere where publishers and publicists can see their reviews and start feeling like they're a trusted source to be one of the people they automatically mail to. A lot of my staff is all um, volunteers. And so they let publishers know or publicists or the individual authors know, I've written a review, here's the link to it. but they also then develop their own relationships with those publishers. They don't have to go through me. So if I don't receive a book that they're really wanting, they are allowed to use our reputation and our name to contact somebody and say, "Hey, I'm with this group. Can I please have access to this book?" And we have such a solid relationship with people that most of the time publicists say, yeah, I only have a small amount, but I'm definitely going to make sure a reviewer from your website gets it. And that only comes with consistency and doing plenty of reviews to get your name out there. So if you aren't blessed enough to just land in your lap like it kind of did for me, um, definitely be proactive. Maybe go through a publishing website to the generic email and just say, I am a book reader. Here's an example of a review that I've written. I would really love access to this book and become an influencer. There's different groups on like Facebook, like maybe you love fan fiction. There's authors all the time that are looking for beta readers or for ARC readers.
Mm-hmm.
Join for those sites and develop those relationships because those build. And what I've also noticed is publicists tend to move publishers quite a lot. And so I end up with relationships with new publishers that I didn't have at first when a publicist moves, because they remember how they liked our review or our coverage on our site and what we could offer them, and they bring it to a brand new site. So it's just, networking is very important.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. I'm going to release the full screen to you
Okay,
as a speaker so that you can bring up your site
sure.
and show it to us.
Okay,
And let me go here, speaker there. So now when you start talking, it becomes your.
okay. Are you able to see the site?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is our homepage, and as you see, we have many tabs that feature all the things that we can do all in one quick glance. So if you want to do a young adult, if you want to look at middle grade, children's, our blog is super active. We post new content 10 a.m. Eastern time all the way to 4 p.m. every day, and then a little bit on Saturdays. But we have our reviews featured that come through here at all the age differences. We have giveaways that people can join. Um, if they want to, let's see, sorry, I'm fast scrolling, but we'll have authors can do excerpts, author interviews, guest posts, and giveaways of their books with us beyond just us highlighting all the reviews we've done. You can also We are a small site, but we end up with about 30 giveaways every month. So at all the age ranges. So you can join our giveaways and you are probably going to win at least one book a month by doing that. So that's a really good way to grow your personal library, as you can see, or your classroom or your library. Um, a lot of
How
people,
do how does
sorry.
someone get on your website?
So if you go to our homepage, you have a welcome and you can sign up there. I'm signed in right now under myself, but this is where you would. And we also, our giveaway winners are announced on our newsletter, as well as book recommendations for the different themes. Like right now, it's Autism Awareness Month, it's Poetry Month. So we have book recommendations in our newsletter for those topics as well. Um, as well as to the start to search our books.
Does it cost to be on your website?
If you are a community member, it does not cost anything to add a review, or if they don't see a book on our website and they can contact me. I am not one of those websites where you can never find a real person to contact. My email is right here at the bottom where everybody can find me. I in about six other places as well during these FAQ and other things. I want to be able to be contacted if they see a problem or they're having a problem or they want something. If you're an author or a publicist and you want your book added, we do have a small listing fee of $3.99. And that is purely to fund the upgrades for the website, the security for the website, and to be able to ship to my staff. We get about 200 books a month here at YABC, and none of my review staff is in my state. So it is being mailed off all across the country, which does make us have a very diverse background from just people all over, both geographically and in their own professional background. But we, um, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Now, well, then I'm going to ask you another question.
Okay.
How many, on average, how many books would you say get reviewed in a
Well,
month?
funny about that, I discovered a whole new place on the back end of the website that answered that exact question back in January. I discovered my staff had reviewed about 2,000 books last year. And then we currently are doing, as you can see here from our ad, a audience review contest for the last month and a half, and we've generated almost 500, well, I guess 400 community reviews of people seeing books on our site. And I do remember the point I was going to make. Some people who are authors or publicists think that $3.99 is to be paid to review their book, and that is not true, although I can see why they'd be confused. That $3.99 listing fee is simply so we can get it on the website for people to see and add their review, and our staff can see and add their review. And like I said, it fuels the payment for shipping. But the review itself is for free. If we like it, we will review it. But because my staff is volunteer and not paid, I cannot tell them they have to review a book. And they have about 200 books on our physical haul, and then about that many, sometimes a few more on our digital haul, plus access to NetGalley and a few more other online options. So, I cannot guarantee reviews, and I cannot necessarily guarantee that you'll have a book reviewed in a certain timeline, but that is why we say if you've got a book that will be published in the future, get it to us as soon as possible. That's your best chance of getting it reviewed in time.
That is incredible. I mean, I talked to different people. Um, a gal asked if I wanted her to review my book, and I said yes. And the next thing I knew, I had a bill.
Oh no. Yes, we do not, you are not paying for review. And if somebody is telling you that they'll review it for income, that's shady, and that's not what we're about. If you pay on our site at all, it's to either list the book or you are paying for an ad on our website or maybe are doing a paid promotion on our social media or um, maybe you want to do a blog post of an author interview or a giveaway. All of that are paid for opportunities, but the review themselves is totally free, and that's all you'd have to do on our site if you wanted.
I think you guys are so generous in what you're doing, and the fact that you guys are all volunteers in this is just boggles my mind.
It,
I
bo- it boggles my husband's mind too. When I said that I was going to become the site manager, he's like, "How are you going to get people to just not be paid but read and write reviews?" And I said, "Well, they get the book. That's their exchange is they get to keep the book." And, it is not hard. Anytime I've ever opened up the opportunity to join our staff, it is a plethora of people that I could choose from. And pretty much shut it down immediately because I'll fill whatever gap I have instantly.
oh, I can believe that, and I can. believe why somebody would want to work with you.
Well,
You're
thank
not only professional, but you're kind and you're caring.
I appreciate it. And I do think that sets us apart from maybe bigger companies is I I tend to answer somebody's email within an hour or two, depending on how pressing it is. Sometimes it's within a minute. And I tend to shock authors that contact us that say, thank you so much for being a real person and answering my question and taking the time. It means something to people.
Yes, it does. It really does. I um I just to me this is so needed for parents to have an idea of what's in the book.
Hmm.
I know my son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, they read the books that the kids are reading
Hmm.
to make sure that it works. It's the right age. And it's so important today because, like you were saying, things are becoming more, to use an adult term, risque than what they were just a few years ago.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would encourage any parent out there or grandparent out there is to read beyond picture books with your kids. My 11 and 14-year-old, I still read books with them. My son and I average about 60 books a year together. And it makes a difference because if we do come on a topic that I would not be comfortable for him to read on his own, we can talk about it. We can discuss why it is what it is or what we believe about it. We can have meaningful conversations around it. We can have jokes around it. And one thing I've really learned through my years in intervention, when a child's vocabulary grows and their predictions of fiction grow, they actually can interpret their real world so much better because it gives them a safe place to explore different people, different backgrounds, different thought and motivations beyond their own personal experiences. And then they're able to apply that to real life when they see it again. And, and for parents that are also really interested in test scores, just to toot my own horn on my son, who I'm super proud of, at 14 is an eighth grader. He is testing at like a high school level. He has tested out of different state measures because his vocabulary is off the charts and his comprehension's off the charts. So it's kind of making him a more discerning young adult. People aren't going to be able to trick him so much because he has that knowledge and those backgrounds of, somebody said once that they're going to stop calling it fiction and calling it learning through fiction because even though nonfiction is full of facts, fiction, if it really satisfies you and really hits the mark, it's going to feel like real life and real people. And you can learn so much in a safe space in a fictional book.
Exactly. That's what I did. You can go ahead and stop sharing screen right now
Oh,
if you want,
sorry.
because I found that that was my escape,
Mm-hmm.
was reading as a child, and it made such a difference. It made me want to um, travel and do things that nobody else did.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
was my friends were not well when I was 5, they were within 3 blocks of home.
Mm-hmm.
But by time I was in 4th grade, my friends were a mile away, not close to home. So it kept growing and growing, the distance from home. And so when I was 18, I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to go, and I get antsy every 3 years
Yeah.
because I want to go. But it was the books that
Mhm.
opened the world to me.
Yeah.
It was reading 5 books a day, and so I applaud you for what you're doing with your children.
Well,
And
and one of the things at YA Book Central is we don't sell the books once we've read them. That is highly unethical and that is grounds for dismissal from our group. But we do donate books. And so I do donate to schools and charities. All my nieces and nephews know a portion of their birthday or Christmas is going to be books. I'm kind of known as the book lady around here. And, you know, the people I donate to, I worked in a school resource center for a short time, and getting books in the hands of children who are financially disadvantaged. Not only does it build their vocabulary and their understanding of the world, but if their family can't get them to field trips and vacations and moving, it opens up the world
mhm,
through fiction or nonfiction with access. And it puts them on a different playing field than they would without it. So, one of my major passions, because books to me are so transformative, is not only letting my audience know, like, hey, this book is wonderful if you want to have this discussion with your child, or this, I could see this with this lesson plan and with this standard that you need to teach. But it also getting the hands of children. When I was an interventionist, I worked with kids that had IEPs, and one of my great successes that I hold dear to me is we worked so hard on comprehension through his reading and vocabulary that the child's IEP was actually reduced in services because he gained skills that the IEP was trying to get him to learn, and he did. And, I had a child that I worked with that had an undiagnosed learning issue. We knew there was an issue, but the parents weren't interested in pursuing diagnoses. And through reading intervention and vocabulary building, what was monumental and I'll never forget is the child learning words that all of a sudden they could apply to themselves and say, I am this way. And it was something they had not understood about themselves and did not know how to put into words. So not only does it help them see the world, but books hold a mirror up to themselves to where they can say, this is where I fit, this is how I understand myself in a way that other other modalities just don't touch.
mhm. I do have one question.
Okay.
What do you mean by IEP?
So that's an educational term. It is an individual education plan, and it is used when a student needs extra support. So, an IEP is just it's a teacher term for anything a child may need. So if they're blind, if they have dysgraphia, dyslexia, Down syndrome, limb issues, if they're, you know, in a wheelchair, whatever they would need to be on a level playing field of children who don't have those challenges, the IEP is meant to address.
Yeah. Like my goddaughter, she had dyslexia.
Hmm.
And once she had pink tinted glasses,
Hmm.
everything went normal.
Yes. And what's interesting to me, and it's not necessarily always the same color for every child. So I would have different films that the child would put over paper to see what would help them because some colors were good for one child that wasn't the best for another.
Hmm.
It's fascinating.
And I know my husband told me he was taught, um, tried to teach him spade reading, but his comprehension is so powerful because he reads it carefully.
Hmm.
I'm a very fast reader, and I summarize in my head as I'm reading along. And so we get when we both read the same thing, we I like to take him to meetings with me because he sees it one way and I see it another way, and then we
Yeah.
can talk
Hmm.
and figure it out. Um, so
Yes, as many books as I read, I actually avoid speed reading because I'm like him. I want to dive in and immerse myself, and I don't want to skip words, even though I can predict what's coming. I don't want to skip pages or scenes. I want to be that character in that moment and lose myself. And that's kind of how I rate how high I think of a book, is how much I'm able to forget I'm reading and become that book for a minute.
yeah, well, that's as a writer, that's what I want my readers to feel.
Hmm.
I want them to feel so immersed in it, that so caught up in it that they don't want to put it down.
Hmm.
They identify with it. They, I have books that I have read five, six, seven times because they're my friends,
Hmm. And
and
I
I
even
go
kind of
back.
like read-alikes because even though one book may have very similar themes to another book, I haven't read that one, so it's like reading my favorite book all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly,
The other thing
exactly.
I've learned is apparently if you are averaging, 500 books a year, if you read the same book again, it can be kind of like it's new because you just kind of came away with vibes after a time and you don't really remember specific details. You just kind of remember the overall feeling that were left with when which is helpful when I'm rereading these books with my own children. It's like I know this is a good one. I know I enjoyed it, but it's kind of like I'm reading it all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are those too. It's like, no, I know it. I don't. Yeah, but movies are the same way.
Hmm. Exactly. And speaking of movies, a lot of people, when they hear I'm a book reviewer, I guess the loaded question is, what book are you reading? And it's like, do you really want to hear how I'm reading six books at one time? And people are like, I can't read six books at one time. And I say it's like watching TV series. You can watch many multiple series and not get them mixed up, and it goes just fine, as long as they're not too similar at any one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't. It helps me if I'm reading like a rom-com and a fantasy and a historical fiction. It helps for them to be different if I'm switching between. But if I get bored in 20 or 30 minutes of reading one book, but I'm not bored of reading, I just go pick up a different book and then I'm good for another 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I do. I have about four books going at one time, and some of them are not, they're factual, they're training books, they're, because I love to learn,
Hmm.
and I don't think we should ever stop learning. This has been so much fun and so interesting. I am I'm can't wait to put this on the
Thank you for having me. And
uh,
thank you for everybody who is able to join us or will join us through the recording. And like I said, if you go to my website, yabookcentral.com, you scroll to the bottom where my email is. I am right there, ready to go. If you have a question, if you want to advertise with us, or you want to know current trends or what I'm seeing, or need a book recommendation, I've joined groups just so I can give book recommendations because I do enjoy talking about books. So I am right there, ready to help you find your next book, which is YA Book Central's main goal, is to help you find your next read.
well, I want to tell you what our next step is in our organization here, Arizona Professional Writers, as the president of the local chapter, White Mountains. We're doing a writing contest, and it's open to 14-year-olds from
Wonderful.
14 on up. Uh, they just have to have it in by midnight on June 1st
Excellent.
with their registration fee, and we give a critique if they want for an additional fee. But it's all on our one of our websites, which is WM Festivalbooks.org. And we have a writers conference, and we want teenagers there. We want to see the young learn. A teacher needs a student.
Hmm. Yeah, and
They
I do
really
think
do.
current teens get a bad rap of people thinking they're disinterested and not um, caring, but they are. They highly care. They just need a space and a reason to.
Hmm.
But Kathleen, if you would like to send me through email the information about it, I'd love to share it on our social media channels as well, and get as much eyes on it as possible for that wonderful opportunity you're offering.
Okay. And also, we have a book festival coming up. We have people coming from possibly Florida to from California, who knows, to that too. And both of the Writers Conference and the Book Festival are August 31st or July 31st and August 1st. But I will send you the information on the book festival, on the book contest, and because there's no um, territory limitations on that.
Okay.
They just have to be submitted in a certain format, just like an author is submitting it to a publisher.
Okay.
So, and I have that clearly written out, and I will send that information to you.
Sounds
And um, this has been fun.
good.
And
Thank
Ed,
you.
thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate that.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Okay. And we will talk again
Yes.
because I like you.
Same. Thank you.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Until next time, next month, the fourth Tuesday of every month, we have a guest speaker. See you then. Bye bye.
Bye.